Good evening and welcome to the Republic. We are in New World again, doing a little bit of random grinding, pig killing, wolf killing, berry picking, and nut collecting, and all those other random things. Chicken killing, turkey killing, and uh, and talking about life. So anyway, today we're talking about how it's so easy to fast forward through life, and by that I mean, you ever have something that's boring to you, or it's not super fun. And so you just kind of think, oh man, if I could just get past this to the good part, like I got 4 hours left to be at work, so I'm just going to kind of look forward to going home. Well, okay, that's fine and dandy. But then what about those 4 hours? Like, why not have fun? And if you can't have fun, at least find satisfaction in what you're currently doing. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to go through life wishing you could fast forward through the parts that you don't think are interesting. And then, if you're not careful, you might find you make your way through your whole life and none of it was really very interesting. And you spent most of your life thinking, if I could just get through whatever I'm experiencing right now, and then I could get to the good part where I'm going to have fun and have all the things that I've been hoping for. And then you never really get there. It's like looking for the end of the rainbow. It just isn't really there. It's always there, but it's never there when you're looking for it. So it's best to be mindful about what you're doing and do enjoy what you're doing. Put effort into what you're doing and be mindful about it in the moment. Don't be thinking about something else, thinking about being somewhere else, thinking about doing something else. Just be present in what you're currently doing. It's so easy to always gravitate back to these desires to go somewhere other than where we are, to have something other than what we have, to always reach and say, "Oh man, it would be so cool to go do that other thing." And then like we always give what we're currently doing, what we currently have, the back seat, and we don't see it as a blessing when we have it. Even if it's the best moments of our lives, we don't really feel like it's special until we look back on it, and then we wish we could go back. And then it's kind of, maybe it's too late at that point, because you have a lot of opportunities to have a good life, but it's like if you were working out in the rain, like you're all wet and you're soaked and you're sweating and you're miserable in a way, but maybe you're doing something that's hard work for a purpose. So you could have satisfaction and you can get value out of that experience. Doesn't mean it's fun necessarily, because maybe it's not fun, maybe it's a challenge, but it also can be satisfying, even if it's not fun. And so it is with all things in life, work we do, things that we are endeavoring to accomplish, the work we do, day job, whatever it is. Be glad you are doing what you're doing. Be glad you have what you have. Be glad for the opportunity to serve. Um, Always find a way to be thoughtful about what you're doing, and don't wish you could get through something so you can get to whatever's on the other side. Because if you live your life that way, you'll never really have a good time, because you'll always just be looking for the end of that proverbial rainbow. I also think it's worth mentioning. Maybe it's a little bit related to this. We always want to go back. We always want to go back to things that didn't really bear good fruit in our lives, because it's just so much in our nature to feel like we want to look at life through hindsight. I'm reminded of this Bible verse where it's a story, Bible story, where the Jewish people were oppressed in Egypt, and then they got out of there and they made their way out and they went to live in the wilderness, and Moses was leading them, and they were okay. They were safe, they were free, but they also were nomads. They were wandering around in the wilderness. It was not the luxury lifestyle for them. And they started to get frustrated because like God would give them this magic bread from heaven every day. Like they would just get up and there'd be this manna that would fall from the sky, and they were never hungry and they were always cared for, and they were always okay. But it was not, it wasn't sexy. And at some point they said, shoot, when we were back, we being slaves in Egypt, we had fresh onions and we had meat to eat, and now look at us, like this food sucks and stuff. And so they started to be bitter about that. And then it turns out, as the story goes, God did not like their lack of respect and gratitude, so he gave them uh, a whole lot of meat to eat. And they went out there and there were a bunch of dead quails just waiting to be harvested and eaten, and they ate them. And no sooner than they started to eat them, they all died with that meat in their mouths, and it was their punishment. It was their punishment for being ungrateful. And that's a little bit of a, maybe it's a little bit of a weird story, but it certainly rings true. Don't we do that in our lives all the time? We look back on things that used to be, and we don't see the good things that we have today. Um, and express gratitude for the things that we are free from. Instead, we look at the bondage from before. We look at the bad times that we came from, and we want to go back. Some part of us says, it wasn't perfect before, but in some ways it was better than what we have now. We have that feeling. I've experienced that in the video game uh, hobby. I'll play a game and then I move on. I stop playing a game because I'm not really having fun. But then once you kind of stop, then there's that temptation to look back on what you liked about that old game or whatever. And you say, oh man, I should go back and I should get into that. But then the truth is, if you actually went back, you'd realize pretty quick wasn't that great. That's why you moved on. Like it had its time. But we're always looking for something better than the present. We're always dissatisfied with the now, wishing we could go back to the good old days. Even if they weren't all that good, we still have that nostalgia. We have that sense of wanting to get those old times back. And maybe those old times weren't very good for us, but we forget that sometimes. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge to be content every single day, to be patient and perseverant and positive and mindful in the present, and not have that desire to move forward with your gaze set on the rear view mirror. You gotta look forward. And not to the part of the road you can't see yet either. The part that you're driving on right now, that's the part you focus on. Make the best of the moment. Make use of yourself in the now. And remember, you don't have to have fun to have a sense of satisfaction and to enjoy the value of things in your life. Sometimes we overcomplicate things too, because we start to have this idea we need to do specific things, and if we don't do those specific things, and we've failed. And that's probably not a very healthy way to look at life either. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals. And that's the challenge, isn't it? It's a sense of needing to find this middle way and needing to be moderate without being indifferent. That's like people who pride themselves for being enlightened, There's a lot of people like that. They say, well, I'm more moderate than everyone else. I'm more enlightened than everyone else. I'm more objective. I'm more pragmatic than everyone else. And the next thing you know, well, they're just like everybody else, trying to judge people for not being as enlightened as they are. So, how do you do that? How do you strike a balance between not caring about anything, not believing in yourself at all, and also, having a sense of conviction, having a sense of surety of your position, having an interest in things, um, but also not forcing it on other people, not judging other people because they don't fit your standard. I think that's the challenge in life. It's always a matter of trying to kind of steer back to center because we're always kind of tilting to the extremes on the left or the right, one way or the other, and you have to always catch yourself and say, okay, time out, that's enough, and then you know I'm going to be interested but not obsessed. It's like gaming. If you want to have a good time, you kind of have to take it seriously to some degree, right? Just like anything in life, if you aren't really interested in it, then you're probably not going to be able to have the experience of a satisfying hobby. And yet you also don't want to be defined by one thing to where you're like a bobblehead doll sitting on the desk. You are a caricature where there's no other depth to your personality other than that one thing you do. You can be committed to something. You can also not necessarily be tied down to it forever. We have a tendency to believe that things are supposed to be permanent. We think we want to find something that'll be forever, a process that'll work for every circumstance, a realization that'll apply to every scenario. And life isn't really an absolute in that way. Life is filled with things that are temporary, things that last for a while but not forever. People that are good, but they don't always do good things. People that do bad things, but they're not all bad either. Sometimes I think about these old guys who make their way through life, and they always have time for you. Like you could call them up anytime you want. They'd always have time for a cup of coffee, right? They'd always have time to listen to you. They wouldn't really be all that interested in telling you that you're wrong or full of it or anything. They probably know you are because, like I remember my old buddy Mr. Snelson, and we'd sit around and talk for many hours. We could sit and talk all day long. And I was, in my early 20s, probably. I don't know. I would say, yeah, like early 20s, mid 20s. And he was in his 80s or early 90s or something. Yeah, I think 80s. Anyway, we were good friends. I'm sure there were many times when he could have looked at me and pointed out all the things that were immature about me and stuff like that. But he didn't. Because why would he, you know? He thought I was cool and I thought he was cool. And there really was no judgment, just respect. And it wasn't that, it wasn't that we were 100% equal. We just respected each other because there was a balance there. I didn't try to prove that I was, that I had his level of experience, and he didn't try to convince me to have his perspective, but he was willing to share things, and he was willing to listen, and willing to teach, and willing to inspire, and willing to share in a fellowship. And that's really what it's all about. It's just sometimes you have wisdom, but the wisest person in the world is not gonna try to make a show of it. Just mind your own business and make the best of the life you have, and enjoy what you're doing in the moment, and try to make a good use of yourself as much as you can. And then you gotta forgive yourself for all your faults. Forgive yourself of your flaws. Forgive others of theirs. But that also doesn't mean no expectations. So you do have to, sometimes you gotta correct your course. There is a difference between being hard on yourself for no good reason and making no effort to course correct your life. You gotta change. You gotta do what you need to do. But you never have to beat yourself up or be hard on others or anything like that. Really, you can just try to make the best decision you can, and beyond that, you just kind of let it go. Been playing New World for the entire time this game's been online. I bought it right when it launched. Played it off and on again. And after, well, more than a year, I believe, it's been out. I don't know when it released anymore. It was a while ago, though. I think it's been like a year and a half. Now I'm level 59. After all that time, it took more than a year for me to level up my first character up to 60. And I'm sure plenty of people would say, well, what the heck have you been doing? Well, I don't know. Been playing once in a while, thinking about quitting the game, coming back once in a while, catching fish and killing pigs in low-level areas when I should be doing quests. Random stuff. But you know what? Never really burned out, though, either. Eventually you get there. I might be playing this game long after most of those initial people that were doing crazy amounts of time in the game to rush to end game in the first couple of weekends after it came out. Like, those people probably burned out, got frustrated with the game, and quit. I'm this filthy casual. Like, I just don't even play the game the way it was meant to be played, really. And I'm still getting some joy out of it a year and a half down the road. So sometimes less is more. Someone once said you gotta slow down so you can go faster. That's what life's all about, isn't it? Be a good steward of what you have so that you don't ever have need when the hard times come. Genesis 41 tells a story of Joseph. Joseph, who was in Egypt. He had a dream about fat cows, and there's 7 fat cows and 7 plump, juicy-looking wheat kernels, and then there were 7 disease-ridden cows and drought-plagued grain kernels. And he realized it was a vision telling him what was going to happen. There's going to be 7 years of abundance and then 7 years of struggle and famine and food shortage. So what did he do? He was in charge of the grain storage for the Pharaoh. And he spent those 7 years collecting grain and putting it away and filling up the storehouses till they were so full he stopped even counting how much grain was being stockpiled and put away because there's so much of it. And then came the famine, and everybody came and they sold their land and they traded it for food. And when all was said and done, all those lands became the Pharaoh's. So Joseph, in that story, dramatically expanded his kingdom by making hay when the sun shines, by being the guy who is stockpiling and putting things away and being conservative when everybody else was just enjoying the abundance. And then he was able to help his country and his career get ahead when the time came, when no one else was prepared, but he was. So there's a lesson there. Make the best of your life when times are good. Then you'll never have times which are not. Well, I hope your life is going well, and until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.